Bear keeps hugging crying kitten. When the vets found out why, everyone was in tears. The dense Oregon pines swayed in the early autumn wind as Dr. Erin Calloway's truck bounced along the winding gravel road toward Haven Ridge Wildlife Rescue Center. Through her open window, she could smell the sharp scent of conifer and the earthy dampness of recent rain. The radio crackled with static before the dispatcher's voice cut through. "Dr. Calloway, we've got another emergency coming in. Adult female black bear deceased from gunshot wounds. Cub found nearby, injured. Approximately 1 year old." Erin's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Poachers again? Game warden thinks so. No hunting season, no tags, no reports of aggressive bear activity in the area. ETA on the cub? 40 minutes. Forest Service is bringing him in. Erin sighed, pressing her foot more firmly on the accelerator. "I'll be there in 20. The Haven Ridge Wildlife Rescue Center sat nestled in a clearing surrounded by towering Douglas firs. The main building, a renovated ranch house with multiple extensions, had weathered to a silvery gray that blended with the misty Oregon landscape. Behind it stood a series of enclosures, each designed to house injured wildlife during rehabilitation. Maya Jensen, a college student volunteering during her gap year, met Erin at the entrance, her dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, clipboard in hand. "Morning, Dr. Calloway. The surgery room is prepped." Dr. Westfield called. "He's on his way back from Portland." "Thanks, Maya. Any more details on the cub?" "Male, approximately 12 to 14 months old. Forest Service reported a leg injury, possibly from falling down a slope after the mother was shot. They're calling him Boon." The cub arrived wrapped in a thick blanket, sedated for transport but beginning to stir. Even in his weakened state, the rich black fur gleamed under the examination lights. His rear left leg was swollen and raw where skin had been scraped away. X-rays revealed a hairline fracture in the femur. As Erin worked on the leg, Maya monitored the cub's vitals. "He's stable, but his heart rate's elevated even under sedation." "Trauma response," Erin murmured, carefully setting the leg. "He was with his mother when she was killed." Bears form incredibly strong bonds with their cubs. By evening, Boon was settled in an isolated recovery enclosure. The space was dimly lit with thick straw bedding, a shallow water trough, and a covered area that provided darkness and security. Through the observation window, Erin and Maya watched as the cub regained consciousness. Boon didn't explore his surroundings as most animals did. Instead, he dragged himself to the farthest corner, pressed his body against the wall, and curled into a tight ball, his injured leg awkwardly extended. His eyes remained open, unblinking, staring at nothing. "He's not just physically injured," Erin said softly. "He's in shock." For 3 days, Boon remained in his corner. He refused food, wouldn't acknowledge the staff, and only moved when absolutely necessary. At night, the security cameras recorded his soft, plaintive whimpers, sounds so heartbreaking that Maya had to mute the monitor during her overnight shifts. On the 4th day, a battered pickup truck pulled into the center's parking lot. A gangly teenage girl stepped out, clutching something small wrapped in a blue fleece blanket. "Can I help you?" Maya asked, meeting her at the entrance. "I found this kitten under our porch," the girl said, her voice quavering slightly as she carefully pulled back the blanket to reveal a tiny white kitten. "I think it's been abandoned. It's really cold, and I didn't know where else to take it." "I'm sorry, but we're a wildlife rehabilitation center." "We don't typically," "Please," the girl interrupted. I called the animal shelter in town, but they're closed until Monday. My mom's allergic, and I didn't know what else to do." Maya hesitated, then gestured for the girl to follow her inside. "What's your name?" "Lily. Lily Hart. I'm 14. Dr. Aaron was reviewing Boon's charts when Maya entered with Lily and the bundled kitten. "Calloway, this is Lily. She found a kitten that needs help." Aaron started to explain their wildlife-only policy but stopped when Lily unwrapped the blanket. The kitten was snow-white and impossibly small, its eyes barely open, ribs visible through thin fur. It wasn't moving except for the shallow rise and fall of its chest. "How long has it been like this?" Aaron asked, professional concern overriding protocol. "I found it this morning. I tried giving it some warm milk with a dropper, but it wouldn't take much." Aaron carefully took the bundle. "This kitten is only about 3 weeks old. It needs specialized care." She saw the pleading look in Lily's eyes and made a decision. "We'll stabilize it over the weekend. On Monday, we'll arrange a transfer to a proper shelter or foster home." "Thank you," Lily breathed. "I'm calling it Frosty, because of the white fur." "Appropriate," Aaron smiled. "Leave your contact information with Maya. We'll keep you updated." After Lily left, Aaron carried the kitten down the hallway toward the small room they occasionally used for orphan fox kits. They passed by Boon's enclosure, and something extraordinary happened. The bear cub, who hadn't moved voluntarily in days, suddenly lifted his head. His nostrils flared as he caught the scent of the kitten. He rose unsteadily, favoring his injured leg, and approached the mesh wall of his enclosure. As Aaron paused, surprised by the movement, Boon released a low rumbling sound, not aggressive, but almost like a greeting. "That's the first response we've gotten from him," Maya whispered, joining Aaron in the hallway. "Let's not read too much into it," Aaron cautioned, though her scientific curiosity was piqued. Animals respond to all sorts of stimuli. The kitten was set up in an incubator with a heating pad and a soft towel. Aaron carefully administered fluids subcutaneously and prepared a formula specifically for young kittens. The prognosis wasn't good. Frosty was severely dehydrated and hypothermic, but they would do what they could. That evening, Dr. Alan Westfield, the center's director, returned from his conference in Portland. A tall man with salt and pepper hair and perpetually sunburned cheeks from years of field work, he raised an eyebrow when Aaron explained about Frosty. "A domestic cat? You know our licensing doesn't cover pets." "It's temporary," she assured him. "Just until Monday. The kitten wouldn't have survived otherwise." Alan sighed but nodded. "Keep it away from the wildlife. Last thing we need is scent contamination or disease transmission." "Of course." Although Aaron hesitated, something interesting happened when I walked past Boon's enclosure with the kitten. He responded, for the first time. "Coincidence," Alan said dismissively. "Or predatory instinct." It didn't seem predatory. It was almost like recognition. The next morning, Maya arrived early to check on their patients. Frosty had made it through the night but was still worryingly lethargic. As she carried the kitten's small carrier to refresh the bedding, she again passed Boon's enclosure. The bear cub immediately perked up, pressing himself against the mesh, his eyes following the carrier intently. "Dr. Calloway needs to see this," Maya murmured, hurrying to find her supervisor. When Aaron arrived, Maya demonstrated. Walking away from Boon's enclosure, the cub became agitated, pacing as much as his injured leg would allow. Walking toward the enclosure with Frosty, Boon calmed, sitting close to the mesh, his eyes fixed on the carrier. "Try putting the carrier down near the mesh," Erin suggested, her scientific mind racing with possibilities. Maya carefully placed the carrier on a chair near Boon's enclosure, angled so the bear could see the tiny kitten inside. Boon immediately lay down next to the mesh, as close as possible to Frosty. His breathing slowed, and for the first time since his arrival, his body language relaxed. "I've never seen anything like this," Erin admitted. Throughout the day, they conducted small tests. When Frosty was nearby, Boon remained calm and alert. When the kitten was removed, the bear would become restless, sometimes emitting soft whimpers similar to those he made at night. By afternoon, Erin made a decision. "Let's try something. The kitten needs constant warmth, and Boon seems calmer when Frosty is near. Let's place the incubator close to Boon's enclosure, not inside, of course, but where they can see each other." The arrangement had immediate effects. Boon positioned himself against the mesh wall nearest to Frosty's incubator. The bear's presence seemed to provide comfort to the kitten as well. Frosty's breathing became more regular, and that evening, the kitten finally accepted a full feeding. Dr. Westfield was skeptical when Erin reported these developments. "You're anthropomorphizing, Erin. The bear is displaying territorial behavior, and the kitten is simply responding to the stable environment we've created." "With all due respect, Alan, I've been rehabilitating wildlife for 15 years, this is different. There's a genuine connection forming." That night, Frosty took a turn for the worse. The kitten's temperature dropped dangerously low, and it refused all food. Maya, working the overnight shift, called Erin in a panic. "Nothing's working," she said when Erin arrived, still in her pajamas under a hastily thrown-on coat. "I've tried everything, the heating pad, the formula, even the subcutaneous fluids again." Erin examined the failing kitten, her mind racing. "There's one thing we haven't tried," she said. Finally, the man who found Boon had an old backpack with him. He said he found it near the mother bear's body, probably belonged to one of the poachers. "It's in storage, and it might still carry the scent of Boon's mother." Maya retrieved the backpack, a weathered canvas rucksack with frayed straps. They extracted a flannel shirt from inside and placed it in Frosty's incubator, then moved the setup even closer to Boon's enclosure. The effect was remarkable. Boon immediately pressed himself flat against the mesh, releasing a soft rumbling sound, different from his earlier vocalizations. This wasn't a call, it was a comforting noise, similar to what a mother bear might use to soothe her cubs. Frosty, surrounded by the scent of Boon's mother and the sound of the bear's rumbles, finally settled into a deep sleep. By morning, Frosty was accepting food again. Over the next few days, both animals showed significant improvement. Boon began eating regularly, but only when Frosty was nearby. The kitten grew stronger, more active, its blue eyes fully open now, occasionally pawing at the air in Boon's direction. "It's as if they're healing each other," Maya observed one afternoon, watching as Boon gently pawed at the mesh while Frosty batted at a small toy mouse on the other side. Dr. Westfield remained unconvinced. "This is problematic. We're creating an unnatural dependency. Boon needs to be prepared for release back into the wild." "He's still injured," Erin countered. "His leg needs at least 4 more weeks to heal properly, and we can begin separation protocols gradually after both animals are stable." But the bond between bear and kitten continued to strengthen. When Frosty was taken for checkups, Boon would pace anxiously, calming only when the kitten returned. During one examination, when Frosty stumbled while receiving medication, Boon let out a distressed growl and pawed frantically at the mesh. Word of the unusual friendship spread through the small staff. Soon, everyone had witnessed some aspect of the growing bond, Boon pushing berries through the mesh toward Frosty's incubator, the kitten falling asleep pressed against the barrier separating them, the bear cub positioning himself like a sentinel whenever center staff approached Frosty. By the third week, controversy emerged. Dr. Westfield called a staff meeting, inviting several outside experts to weigh in on the situation. "This has gone far enough," he began, standing at the head of the conference table. "Our mission is wildlife rehabilitation and release. Boon is developing behaviors that will compromise his ability to survive in the wild." Dr. Patricia Nguyen, a wildlife behaviorist from Oregon State University, offered her perspective. "What we're seeing could be classified as emotional transference trauma. Boon experienced profound loss when his mother was killed. The presence of another small, vulnerable creature triggered an incomplete maternal instinct, perhaps even a sibling protection instinct." "But is it harmful?" Maya asked. "They're both thriving now. The concern," Dr. Nguyen explained, "is that we're allowing a wild predator to form an attachment to a potential prey species. As Boon matures, his predatory instincts will strengthen. It creates an ethical dilemma." Dr. James Morgan, a rehabilitation specialist from Washington, disagreed. "I've observed cases of cross-species bonding in trauma situations. While unusual, they don't necessarily impede successful rehabilitation. The bond can be gradually transitioned as both animals recover." The debate continued for hours. By meeting's end, Dr. Westfield made his decision. "We'll proceed with standard rehabilitation protocols for Boon. The kitten will be transferred to an animal shelter on Monday as originally planned. We'll begin separation tomorrow, increasing the distance between them gradually." That night, Maya sat alone in the monitoring room, watching Boon and Frosty on the security camera. The bear cub lay pressed against the mesh, one paw extended as if reaching for the kitten. Frosty, now strong enough to move around independently, had positioned himself as close as possible to Boon, occasionally reaching a tiny paw toward the much larger animal. "It's not fair," Maya whispered to herself. The separation began the next morning. Frosty's incubator was moved 10 feet away from Boon's enclosure. The bear's reaction was immediate and heartbreaking. He paced frantically, ignoring his still healing leg, emitting distressed grunts and whimpers. By afternoon, he had stopped eating again. Frosty wasn't faring much better. The kitten mewed plaintively, refusing food, constantly trying to move toward Boon's enclosure. Erin documented the animal's responses meticulously, growing increasingly concerned. By evening, she approached Dr. Westfield in his office. "This isn't working, Alan. They're both regressing." He sighed heavily, removing his glasses to rub his eyes. "What do you suggest?" "We can't release a bear that's bonded to a house cat. Maybe we don't have to." For the next 2 days, they researched alternatives. Erin reached out to contacts at various wildlife sanctuaries, places where animals that couldn't be released could live out their lives in protected, natural-like settings. Meanwhile, plans continued for Boon's eventual release. The date was set for the following month, assuming his leg healed properly and he demonstrated appropriate wild behaviors. Frosty would be transferred to the animal shelter the following Monday. The night before Frosty's scheduled departure, Maya volunteered to stay late. She sat between the two enclosures, reading aloud from a wildlife biology textbook as both animals listened attentively from their respective spaces. It was a small comfort she could offer them in their final hours together. "I don't know if Dr. Calloway will find a solution," she told them softly, "but I'm hoping for a miracle." The morning of Frosty's transfer arrived with heavy rainfall that matched the somber mood at the center. Maya placed the kitten, now significantly stronger and more playful, into a small carrier. As she walked past Boon's enclosure for the last time, the bear cub raised himself on his hind legs, pressing both paws against the mesh. Maya paused, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry, Boon," she whispered. At that moment, Dr. Calloway burst through the doors, soaking wet from the rain but smiling broadly. "Wait. Don't take Frosty yet. I think I found a solution." Part 2, Lisa Morrow arrived at Haven Ridge Wildlife Rescue Center on a crisp October morning, her mud-spattered SUV pulling up next to the main building. She stepped out, a tall woman with sun-weathered skin and practical clothes, her graying hair pulled back in a tight braid. "Dr. Calloway?" she asked, extending a hand to Erin. "Lisa Morrow. We spoke on the phone about your unusual situation." "Thank you for coming all this way," Erin said, shaking Lisa's hand. "I know Sisters is quite a drive from here." Lisa smiled. "When you described these two, I had to see for myself. 20 years in wildlife rehabilitation and I've never heard anything quite like it." Lisa Morrow ran a private wildlife sanctuary on 40 acres of land outside Sisters, Oregon. Unlike rehabilitation centers focused on releasing animals back into the wild, her sanctuary provided permanent homes for animals that couldn't survive independently, usually due to injuries or improper human imprinting. "I should warn you," Erin said as she led Lisa inside, "Dr. Westfield remains skeptical. He's concerned about setting precedents that might compromise our rehabilitation mission." "Understandable," Lisa nodded. "Most of our work should focus on returning animals to their natural habitats, but there are always exceptions, cases where compassion and practical reality need to guide our decisions." Dr. Westfield met them in the conference room, his expression guarded but professional. After introductions, he didn't mince words. "Ms. Morrow, while I respect your sanctuary's work, I'm concerned about encouraging unnatural behaviors in a wild predator. Bears don't form bonds with cats in nature." "Call me Lisa, please," she responded evenly. "And you're right, they don't. But trauma creates exceptional circumstances. I'd like to observe them before making any recommendations." The observation was arranged carefully. Lisa would watch Boon and Frosty through one-way glass without being seen by either animal. She insisted on observing them in 3 conditions, together, with Frosty's incubator placed near Boon's enclosure, completely separated, and in an intermediate arrangement where they could sense but not see each other. For over an hour, Lisa watched in silence, taking occasional notes. She observed Boon's protective posturing when staff approached Frosty, the kitten's confident movements when near the bear, and the obvious distress both displayed when separated. During a short separation test, Frosty was moved to an examination room down the hall. Within minutes, despite being in a soundproof enclosure, Boon became highly agitated, as if sensing the kitten's absence. When a veterinary technician administered routine medication to Frosty, causing the kitten to emit a small cry, Boon jolted alert in his enclosure and released a roar that echoed through the building. "That's enough," Lisa said quietly. "I've seen what I needed to see." Back in the conference room, Dr. Westfield, Erin, and Maya waited anxiously for Lisa's assessment. "What these animals have formed," Lisa began carefully, "is what we call a trauma bond. In extreme circumstances, particularly involving early developmental trauma. Animals can form attachments that cross normal behavioral boundaries. It's rare but well documented. But is it healthy? Dr. Westfield pressed. In the wild, no. But neither of these animals is going to have a conventional life. Lisa spread her hands on the table. The bear cub has formed what appears to be a protective bond, similar to what he might have formed with a sibling. The kitten, being so young when introduced to Boon, has imprinted on him as a source of security. And your recommendation? Aaron asked. Lisa met each of their gazes in. In turn, this is a social bond that cannot be severed if either is to truly survive. Attempting to separate them permanently would likely result in regression, depression, and possibly self-harm for Boon. So what are you proposing? Dr. Westfield asked. My sanctuary has the facilities to accommodate both animals. We have a nearly 1-acre natural enclosure originally designed for black bears, with trees, a small stream, and natural foraging opportunities. Adjacent to it, we could construct a connected but separate space for Frosty, allowing interaction through protected barriers while ensuring the cat's safety as Boon matures. You'd take both of them? Sam asked, unable to hide her enthusiasm. Lisa nodded. With proper legal arrangements, the bear would remain classified as wildlife under state protection. The cat would technically be a sanctuary animal. Dr. Westfield remained concerned. What happens when Boon reaches full maturity? A male black bear can grow to over 300 pounds. The predatory instinct could emerge regardless of their current bond. That's why we'll maintain separate but connected spaces, Lisa explained. Boon will have his natural habitat. Frosty will have a connected indoor-outdoor cattery with mesh windows into Boon's territory. They can see and smell each other, even lie next to each other through the barriers, but Frosty will always have safe retreat spaces. Discussions continued for days. Legal considerations were evaluated, veterinary protocols established, and transportation logistics planned. The state wildlife department was consulted, as was the local animal shelter that had agreed to take Frosty. Finally, Dr. Westfield relented. If this is truly what's best for Boon's recovery, I won't stand in the way. But I want meticulous documentation. This could be an important case study for wildlife trauma rehabilitation. 2 weeks later, all arrangements were finalized. The transfer would happen the following morning. Boon's leg had healed well, though he would always have a slight limp. Frosty had grown into a playful, energetic kitten, snow-white fur now thick and healthy. The evening before the transfer, Erin made an unprecedented decision. Under careful supervision, with appropriate safety measures in place, she allowed Frosty to be placed briefly in Boon's enclosure for a proper goodbye to the center. We'll stay right here, she told Maya as they stood ready with tranquilizer guns, a precaution they doubted they'd need. At the first sign of aggression, we intervene. Maya carefully carried Frosty to the enclosure door. Dr. Westfield, who had insisted on being present, opened it just enough for Maya to slip the kitten inside. Boon, who had been watching intently from the far corner, remained perfectly still. Frosty took a few tentative steps into the enclosure, tiny paws pressing into the straw bedding. The kitten looked around, spotted Boon, and without hesitation trotted directly toward the bear cub. Everyone held their breath. Boon lowered his head, gently sniffed the approaching kitten, and then did something remarkable. He extended his tongue and delicately licked Frosty's ear. The kitten responded with a purr so loud it was audible even through the observation window. Then Boon settled onto his side, and Frosty immediately climbed over his paws, curling into a small white ball against the bear's chest. Boon's foreleg curved protectively around the kitten, and both animals closed their eyes in apparent contentment. "My God," Dr. Westfield whispered. Maya wiped tears from her cheeks. "Told you so," she murmured. The transfer the next day went smoothly. Boon was sedated for the journey, while Frosty traveled in a carrier placed where the bear could detect his scent upon waking. Lisa's sanctuary staff had prepared both enclosures according to exacting specifications. A specially designed friendship window, a reinforced mesh barrier, would allow the animals to see, smell, and even touch paws through small openings while preventing any possibility of Frosty being harmed if Boon's behavior ever changed. The sanctuary itself was beautiful, a natural forest environment with wetland areas, meadows, and stands of pine and fir trees. Lisa's modest house stood at the property's edge, providing a constant human presence while allowing the animals appropriate space. After settling Boon and Frosty into their new home, Aaron, Maya, and Dr. Westfield prepared to leave. Lisa walked them to their vehicle. "We'll send regular updates," she promised, "and you're always welcome to visit." "Take good care of them," Maya said, giving Lisa a spontaneous hug. "I will," Lisa assured her. "Some might say what we're doing is unnatural, but I believe that compassion is always natural, even across species boundaries." As they drove away, Maya looked back through the rear window, watching the sanctuary disappear behind the trees. "Do you think they'll be happy there?" she asked. "I think," Aaron said thoughtfully, "that they've already taught us something important about healing. Sometimes the connection we need comes from the most unexpected source." 6 months passed. Winter settled over Oregon, coating the forest in thick blankets of snow. And at Haven Ridge, the daily work of wildlife rehabilitation continued: injured eagles, orphaned fox kits, a badger with a broken paw. Dr. Westfield called Aaron and Maya to his office one morning, holding a large envelope. "Package from Lisa Morrow," he announced, a hint of a smile softening his usually serious expression. Inside was a leather-bound photo album and a printed article from Oregon Wildlife magazine titled "Family Isn't Always About Species," a feature on Frosty and Boon's unusual bond. The article detailed their journey from trauma to healing, with quotes from Lisa, Aaron, and wildlife behavior experts. The photos showed Boon exploring his spacious wooded enclosure, now much larger than when they'd first arrived. One image captured him standing on his hind legs to inspect a beehive, his black coat gleaming in the sunlight. Another showed Frosty in his connected cattery, playing with toys on multiple climbing platforms. But the most striking photo showed them together at their friendship window, Boon pressing his nose against the mesh while Frosty patted at him with a white paw, both animals sleeping on either side of the barrier, bodies aligned as closely as possible. The final page held a single photograph that took their breath away. Taken with a telephoto lens from a distant observation platform, it showed Boon, now nearly fully grown, sitting majestically on a rocky ledge in his enclosure. The winter landscape stretched behind him, trees heavy with snow, and there, nestled securely beneath his massive paw, was a small white form, Frosty, gazing out at the same vista. Both animals seemingly contemplating the wilderness beyond. A handwritten note from Lisa accompanied the photo. During supervised interaction sessions in the secure area, they still find this position. The sanctuary veterinarian believes it's a comfort behavior for both Boon, protecting what he considers family, for Frosty, finding security with his unlikely guardian. Some bonds transcend understanding, but not compassion. Dr. Westfield studied the photo for a long moment. "I was wrong," he admitted quietly. "What they have isn't unnatural at all. It's just rare." "Not that rare," Aaron said, smiling. "Connections that heal us can come from unexpected places. We just have to be open to recognizing them." Outside, snow began falling again, adding another layer to the white landscape. In the forest beyond the center, life continued its ancient cycles of challenge and survival. And 40 miles away, in a sanctuary nestled among the pines, a bear and a cat defied conventional understanding. Two souls who had found in each other exactly what they needed to heal. Maya closed the album gently. "Do you think we could visit them soon?" "I think that's an excellent idea," Dr. Westfield said. "I'd like to see this friendship window design for myself. Could be a model for other trauma cases." As they left his office, Aaron paused at the window, watching the snowfall. She thought of Boon and Frosty, and all the injured creatures that had passed through their hedra. The work of healing was never simple, rarely followed textbook patterns, and often required openness to unexpected possibilities. Sometimes, she reflected, the deepest wisdom came not from scientific journals or established protocols, but from the animals themselves, if humans were humble enough to learn. Lily Hart visited the sanctuary that spring. Now 15, she stood transfixed before the large habitat, watching as Boon foraged for berries while Frosty observed from a connected overhead walkway. "I never imagined finding a half-frozen kitten would lead to all this," she told Lisa. "Compassion creates ripples we can't predict," Lisa replied. "Because of you, both these lives were?" As if sensing they were being discussed, Boon looked up, meeting Lily's gaze with intelligent eyes that seemed to hold an ancient wisdom. Beside him, Frosty stretched lazily in a patch of sunshine, white fur gleaming against the green backdrop of new spring growth. Different species. Different destinies. Yet bound together by something powerful enough to transcend nature's conventional boundaries, not just survival, but a shared journey toward wholeness that neither could have found alone. "Family," Lily said softly, echoing the title of Lisa's article. "It really isn't always about species, is it?" "No," Lisa agreed, watching as Boon settled beneath Frosty's walkway, both animals content in their proximity. "Sometimes, it's simply about who helps us heal."